In the wake of the massacre at the Quebec mosque, we've learned a lot more about the suspect in this case, 27-year-old Alexandre Bissonnette, who held far-right political views that were anti-immigrant as well as anti-feminist. And many are questioning now what Canada is doing to try and battle this alt-right or the far-right political movement that could lead to extremism. And to talk a little bit more about that, I'm joined now by Stephanie Carvin, who's a professor at Carleton University and a former national security analyst with the Government of Canada. So, Stephanie, how big is this problem of far-right extremism in Canada?
It's a good question. We don't actually have indicators as to what people believe, so it's hard to know for sure. What we have seen, however, is really since 2013, a large uptick in the numbers of Canadians that are joining far-right websites, especially on Facebook, and starting up far-right Twitter accounts. The difficulty is knowing whether these are beliefs that these individuals already had, or if they're kind of becoming more extremist in their views.
So how challenging is it for law enforcement and security agencies to tackle, let's say, far-right extremism as opposed to what they've been focused on for many years now, Islamic extremism?
Right. So unlike Al-Qaeda and Islamic State-inspired extremism, what we have seen with these groups is that they tend to be far more fragmented. That, on the one hand, you have Nazis and the kind of skinhead movement that has been in Canada since the 80s, but you also now have the Freemen on the Land movement, which is like the sovereign citizen movement in the U.S., and of course the anti-jihadist movement, which is kind of really gained some traction in Canada since about 2013. So it becomes much harder to target because you don't have the same kind of networks or a kind of single narrative ideology that you have with other extremist groups.
All right, so as we see this far-right extremist viewpoint being used more and more in political discourse and conversations around the country, is there more of a risk that some attacks or more attacks could happen like the one we saw in Quebec City?
Right. It's hard to say for sure what causes someone to actually radicalize to violence, but we can say it's hard to know when these individuals are going to strike because they're a lot like the lone actor attacks we see with the Al-Qaeda and Islamic State extremist movements that we have here in Canada. So it's hard to say whether or not we will definitely see an increase, but that possibility certainly does exist.
All right. Thank you very much. Stephanie Carvin, a professor at Carleton University, as well as a former national security analyst with the government. And I'm Cormac McSweeney in Ottawa for City News.